And the next company?
ElectNext.
Come on down.
So you want to give a little bit about, what you liked about this, what we liked about this?
Of course, we were sent all the companies before we got here, so I spent some time looking at all the websites and what everybody was doing and sort of getting a better idea of what each of your companies did before we got here, because certainly, a 3-second presentation is not exactly the easiest thing to get your arms around or understand what the entrepreneur is trying to do or who the entrepreneur is. But there was something about this site that I found interesting, because I think that one of the biggest problems in terms of elections is that I'm not so sure I think people react to the candidate as a brand, not so much what the candidate believes in. And there was something appealing to me as I went through this whole process of being asked a million questions and saying, here's who you should be voting for. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but I think a lot of people would be surprised. I think we'd have a better and a cleaner election.
I was surprised because I did the whole thing and it said I should be voting for you.
So anyway, you want to ask them some questions?
Sure. Do I go through? Do we go
Well,
through?
yeah, you guys
you
do
gotta
your
go through your thing and then we ask questions,
we'll
right?
go through the questions.
All right, great. So just to set the stage a little bit, it's election day, and you're at the polls, ready to rock the vote until you walk into the ballot booth and you see something like this. It's 3 pages long. You're expected to vote for something like insurance commissioner, and you don't know what to do. And that's precisely where ElectNext comes in. So the idea is that we're building for you eHarmony for your elections. We ask you which issues are most important to you, where you stand on those issues, and then based on your location, we can pull up all of your candidates and show you how you uniquely align to those candidates. So as people come to ElectNext and we help each of you make voting decisions, we are also gaining a unique perspective on the national political preference landscape. That's an $8 billion a year industry that is trying to access exactly that, people's voting preferences. So I'm Kaya Danenbaum. I come from the world of politics. My co-founder, Paul Jungwirth, brings the tech, and we're really excited to help all of you vote well in 2012. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was the most interesting, right? So when I did it, you put in your zip code where you're from, and then a bunch of candidates that, you're right, when you get there, you're voting for these judges, and it's like, I know nothing about these 7 judges.
Right.
And so they told me which judge I should vote for.
And I think, I think it's, I think, it certainly resonates with us and probably with everybody here, just that there's a lot of ignorance in this country and beyond in terms of who we're voting for, what people actually believe in. We get swayed more by television commercials and what your parents might have done or what your peers are doing. And even if you don't necessarily come out of this saying, oh cool, it told me who to vote for, but you just come out of it saying, oh cool, I know that candidate, their perspective or his or her perspective most aligns with my perspective. I think that's a very, very important tool, and certainly, in your process, and certainly for the tertiary kind of candidates, whether it's a, local judge or whatever it is, where you just frankly don't know. I think this solves an ignorance problem. I don't know, I don't know how.
You make money?
Yeah, well, I think you could figure it out. I almost don't care if this business makes money. Meaning the criteria for this, for us, is I almost see this as more of a public service than I do a business. I'm sure you could find ways to monetize it, but it's almost like, I wish it was a nonprofit and it was just like, think before you act, and it was like, know before you vote, and you really, because the biggest thing here is what, the data, what is the data on the back end. By the way, I know there's money in politics in terms of, polling and special interests and whatever, but I almost want this to be pure, you know what I mean? I almost want it to just be, we're here to make sure that people in this country actually vote for the folks who represent what they believe in. Do you know what I mean? Their interests.
I'm just curious, how do you guys come up with those questions, right? So, it's like we all know.
That's my big question as well.
Is data is so, manipulative. Squishy. Yes. So where did you come up with those questions?
But that's by the way, for me too, that is the biggest question we have, is just, it's all fine and good and it sounds great, but it's only good if the answers actually are the right answers, which involves you getting the right data into the system and make sure you ask the right questions. So, hard for us to gauge that, and we really, I think, both wanted to understand how that happens.
Sure. So just a bit of backstory is the site has been live for about 3 weeks. So we are a very young company, and a lot of this stuff we are figuring out as we go along. But to answer your question on where the questions came from, we used as a basis Gallup and Pew political polls. So that's kind of our baseline for topics as well as phrasing. And then we have advisors to the project who are running the Polling Institute at Harvard and out of the political science department at Princeton, so survey analysis experts. So they sort of help us gauge kind of, are we actually writing these questions in a way that professional survey experts find neutral and unbiased. And then the other side of that, how do we populate the site with the information that we need to do the matching? Right now, we pull data from 5 different sources to sort of triangulate where we think each candidate stands on each of the questions that we ask you. That is, the candidates are invited to the platform to answer the questions directly themselves. We do a statement scrape with a bit of in-house curation to just sort of figure out what they're saying and where they land. There's a crowdsource component, so voters can tell us where they think candidates stand, along with a citation. There's an expert source component, same idea, and then we use interest group ratings, which helps us get at sort of voting record type data to infer where candidates stand, and we compile that, and then we have one data point that we use for the matching.
Interesting.
Great.
For each candidate.
And so if you do think about this commercially, do you imagine like it comes out and says I should vote for Mitt Romney, and all of a sudden Mitt Romney has an election ad next to it? Or is that how you see it unfolding?
So we're a little bit philosophically opposed to advertising.
That's why I'm
of what you were getting at is that we really are mission driven, and we see this largely as a public service, and advertising can very much interfere with that mission. So right now we're looking at the unique content that we're drawing together, as well as the functionality that we're presenting, and looking to license is maybe not the right word, but sort of white label the content and functionality to online publishers. Think regional news media, political bloggers, people who are looking to engage their readership around elections in a new and interesting way.
Okay.
So that's
Would
sort
you
of
sell
our
it
first
back
cut.
to politicians? Like, would you say to them, hey, in the 100, it turns out you actually have a lot of supporters, or in the 10013, zip code, and you should give them real detailed
Don't spend
reports.
any time there because they're already voting for you.
Yeah, or that, or go spend time here because you're losing, but you actually think you're winning. And
Yes, once we have a user base and
of
scale, then we think that we can offer data in aggregate to
Right.
campaigns, interest groups, various organizations
so
that
you
are
can
looking
feed
to
the
promote.
beast at that point.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
It's
Thank
awesome.
you very
Great.
much.